this meeting so that others can review it later on. I would like to first say Happy Fire Prevention Week to everyone. Hope everyone's adapting in the circumstance for the week. I know it looks a lot different than our normal fire prevention week, but I know a lot of people are putting a lot of effort to make it work this year. So without further ado, I will pass it over for the real welcome and update from State Fire Marshal Jim Smith.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Welcome everybody to our October version of the Fire Service WebEx. Good. Okay, my screen was going funky, and I thought I'd lost track of stuff, but that's good. Spent a good, wonderful afternoon over at Eden Prairie Fire Department with Chief Gerber and 6 of the 27 firefighters that had gone out west to the Oregon-California border there for the Slater fire, and it was really nice to re-meet them and say thank you for everything that they did for that 14-day deployment. It was quite an experience for those 14 people. They will have stories to tell for many, many years to come, and they did Minnesota proud, so it was a very special day. As far as the Fire Marshal Division is going, there's a lot of stuff going on, but nothing earth-shattering right now, just a lot of day-to-day stuff. I will be, unfortunately for some people, but fortunately for me, be taking off tomorrow morning, and about this time tomorrow, I should be about 200 yards off of where George is sitting right now at the marker buoys, trying to land a muskie or two. We've got a big muskie outing this weekend up on Lake Vermilion. Can't wait. The weather's going to be great. So we have a wonderful program tonight. We were able to get 2 guests on. We'll have Steve Tate and Marcus Bruning from ECN, and then George Esbenson is going to be talking MnFire. Later on in the WebEx, I will, at the very end, I'll be talking about our special edition WebEx that'll be coming up near the end of the month. With that being said, not wanting to take up too much time, Chief Swenson, I give it back to you.
Thank you. We'll move right into an update from the most recent EMAC with Chief Gerber, and I'll let him unmute himself, hopefully.
All right, Amanda, we good to go?
Thank you.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. Hopefully it's as nice of a night where you are as compared to where I am. It's a great night. I was asked to just talk a little bit about EMAC. So for the fire service as a whole, what is EMAC? EMAC stands for the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, which is essentially a state-to-state mutual aid system. And within our state, it's coordinated by Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And so when there's a request that comes from another state for things like wildfires or hurricanes or other major events that might happen in another state, there's a system used nationwide that then sends out a request. It comes into Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Then within our state, there's a look to say, hey, do we have any resources that could meet that? In the event that there are resources that could meet that, then it goes back to the other state to say, hey, here's what we have to provide. Is that something that you want? There's an agreement that's put in place, and then those resources are sent. So we've been, I believe, very fortunate in the state of Minnesota that we've had very strong EMAC systems and coordinators within our state to be able to help when these types of events happen. Within the state of Minnesota, we have used EMAC to deploy National Guard assets to other states, to deploy incident management team, and then certainly most recently, fire service assets to be able to help in Oregon as related to the wildfire. Super important for folks to know that when you are deployed through the EMAC system, you're deployed as a state asset. So some state things like liability and work comp come into play to be able to assist when that deployment is occurring. And then probably a couple important things just to remember that when you're deployed through EMAC, documentation becomes really important, like when on all type of events, but making sure that we record good documentation about what we did every day, the times that we were there, so at the end, when it's all done, many of us have finance or city administrators or city managers or councils and mayors that we report to that would then go back to make sure that we can record and get the finances back to help make that that deployment that we said we'd be a part of whole, if you will, financially from one community to another. I'll end my part of this with just talking a little bit about what I think is Minnesota's reputation as it relates to EMAC. I think Minnesota has a really good reputation because when we have been deployed, whether it's been for something related to hurricane or fire-related assets or other things, Minnesota's always been very willing to be adaptable so that we'll help do whatever it is we need to be able to do when we're deployed, and certainly willing to be flexible in that same realm, but great follow through as well to be able to make sure that we get things done in a timely manner. So that's my part. I'd certainly answer any questions that people may have, but Chief Parker, I believe, is on the line as well. And I just asked him if he would share kind of a couple key thoughts, key areas related to the actual deployment in Oregon, which is probably something you'd rather hear about more so than just the bigger picture. So with that, Ward, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, all you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Yeah, just a brief overview. We sent out 2 task forces, a total of 27 people. Bemidji, Brainerd, Cross Lake, Eden Prairie, Fisher, Motley, and SBM. We split into 2 task forces. My task force was Brainerd, Eden Prairie, Fisher, Motley, and SBM. And task force 2 was Bemidji and Cross Lake. We had a quick meeting in Fergus Falls, our rally point. Got some information and some training from the DNR and briefed by the Fire Marshal's Office and HSEM. And then we were off for a 2,000-mile journey. It took us about 2.5 very long days to go cross country. Some of the unique things when we hit the North Dakota-Montana border, it was like driving at night. We didn't see the sun for 3 days. Couldn't see any of the scenery in Montana, Idaho, Washington State, or Oregon. The smoke was so thick. So it kind of added to the intensity and mindset of what we thought we were going out to. So it kind of had everyone pretty pumped to get out there. So we pushed 2 long days and then got rolled into Oregon about 1 p.m. On Thursday the 17th. A lot of great support from the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office. They set us up. They split us into 2 teams. Task Force 2 went to a base camp. My task force went to a fire station, and we both collectively pitched our tents and fields and ran our first few days operations out of there. We were tasked with structural protection, damage assessment, site survey. We utilized 2 apps that they provided for us. One was Survey 123, which basically we would go up to unburnt structures and just kind of ping where they were. So if the fire did blow through, they knew how many structures were there and potentially lost. And then a damage assessment survey that we used as well. We did an extensive amount of mop-up. Mop-up in the wildland world is just going through the black area, the burnt area, and hitting hot spots that are still there. Hundreds of thousands of trees burnt. The fire just devastated just miles and miles of hillside and mountains. So we spent a tremendous amount of time mopping up. Some of it hand tools, a lot of it hand tools. Some of it we were able to utilize our pump and roll trucks. I should say we rolled out with Type 1 engines, Type 6 engines, and a tender. Type 6s got a lot of work. They were able to get into places that the big trucks couldn't. But we saw a lot of fire and worked, they're 12-hour days. Our days started officially at 7 a.m. and went to 7 p.m. But mission prep before and after, it ended up being, 14, 15-hour days. Rolling out in the dark, rolling back in the dark, and usually, the crews were in bed by 8 p.m. For about a 5:30, 6 a.m. wake-up call. The base camp, like I said, we started in the fire station, camped in their grassy lot outside. It was kind of nice, had showers and bathrooms. But then after day 3, we moved to the base camp. And that base camp was at a lake, and it was in a giant field. At the peak, it was 1,200 firefighters, about 700 fire trucks. They had brought in wildland support for food, showers. They had a mechanic there. So it was pretty intense what they had. They had logistics there. We were able to get pretty much anything we needed. But there we lived in tents. We had wind events, which collapsed numbers of tents. Driving rain, which I can speak for myself. I left my tent open that day and got a little wet. So it was unique. COVID was always on everyone's mind. Everywhere you went in base camp, you had to have a mask on. And at the IAP briefings in the morning that I went to, it was all social distancing out in a lumberyard parking lot. And there was the IAP was given by Skype and a speaker system. So very much COVID was on everyone's mind, and it played into what we did. When we were out in the field, we did not wear masks, and we were pretty much, Task Force 1 was always with Task Force 1. So our folks, we felt pretty protected. We had a tremendous amount of support from the community. A number of people brought us food, thanked us, tons of signs around the community and mountainside of thank you firefighters. And I should mention the whole way out, it was horns honking, thumbs up. A lot of people, just almost everyone was waving at us or taking pictures of the convoy, which was pretty impressive. It ended up being almost a mile long with all the vehicles that we had. And one thing I didn't get to say was, today with HSEM and the State Fire Marshal's Office and the DNR was a great support. It was nice. I checked in every morning and every evening, just a little, heads up of what we did, and sent a few pictures. But it was very nice knowing that we had the support back home in anything that we needed. It's all about relationships and partnerships. So again, it strengthened. I can speak for Task Force 1. I had 5 separate fire departments, and trying to bring 5, my group was 15 firefighters, different fire departments, different SOGs, different way of doing things. We quickly came together, and I think we had a very strong team, and it worked out well. A couple things that, lessons learned. I think Oregon learned quickly that Minnesota, we would do whatever they asked. It wasn't, any complaints. We did hear they sent a number of units home, mainly California units that just didn't want to, play by their rules or take the missions that were given. So we had a lot of praise from the Oregon officials about, Minnesota's ability to take on any task, and we performed it, checked in, and said, hey, what can we do now? So constantly getting mission sets. My task force, we jumped around. There was 8 divisions out there. We were in 6 of them, and got to experience a number of different supervisors and structure bosses. And the wildland world is so different than structural. I'm sure a lot of you know that, but it was eyes wide open for me and my task force of just the sheer magnitude that the wildland folks work in and the work that they do, from the tactics, tools, everything. It's just, it's amazing. The incident management system works well. They've got it dialed in. The IAP briefs in the morning were awesome. Communications was a huge challenge with the mountain ranges. Comms were few and far between. A lot of times it was, hey, I got to jump in a car and go to get cell service or radio service. Little concerning, if folks got into trouble, it would take a little while to get out, but it didn't take long to find a, open space to get a radio out or text or phone call. But it's just so different. Collectively, all 27 folks said they would do it again in a heartbeat. So feel very good that, we did a good job. I think they were pleased with us, and hopefully there'll be more to come in the future. Any questions?
I'm in the meeting.
Thank you. It's great to hear about that EMAC experience and learn more about that. Next on the agenda, we will move to the update from MSFDA from Dave Yerzik.
Good evening. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I don't have much. Our conference, of course, was canceled here in August. Our next one is scheduled for the end of April in Bemidji. Hopefully you all can make it up for that. Please send in your names for the honorary life and deceased firefighters for our memorial program. And then we're also still accepting nominations for awards. We had our fall board meeting via Zoom on Saturday, and our next one will be in January. Region meetings we've heard are going back to in-person. Lake Region, where I'm based out of, is still going to be via WebEx on the 19th. So if anybody needs that link, I can get that to you too. Our dues invoices will be going out in the next week or so. And this year we had over 60 departments that were members. That's 3/4 of the fire state. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, that's my update for tonight.
Thank you. Looks like next up on the agenda is Deputy Director Reed with HSEM, who is also enjoying this beautiful evening.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to get out and see something other than the inside of the EOC once in a while. I just got a couple quick things. Thank you to the EMAC group for going out there. I've heard from my counterpart in Oregon. They're much appreciated, and I believe they're going to send a nice letter to the fire service here thanking them. So they're working on that. So thank you for that. Also, another thank you for Terry Stoltzman, Chief Hayes, and the Aiken County group for our exercise last week, or 2 weeks ago now, up at Camp Ripley. We had a exercise to discuss civil unrest and how we're going to do that with multiple state agencies, multiple sheriff's office, and we did that without any COVID coming out of it. So that's we had 250 people, and because of their help with the safety protocols, it actually went off really, really well, and we survived. So we have some FAQs that we've developed on how to do larger exercises as we get through, and if somebody's doing something, we can help them with some of those processes because of what lessons we learned during that. So thanks to the fire service for helping us out on that exercise. Civil unrest is still on our radar. We seem to have, on a knock on wood right now, not had a big bump in it today after the news of the former officer being out on bail. We'll see how that goes. We're still working on that. And in that vein, we are planning on potentially 4 options of 4 different events, and possibly having to reach out to you guys for an IMT if we have civil unrest, still are working through COVID, line 3, and any other natural disasters. So we're doing some planning right now, and we will be sure to reach out to Terry Stoltzman and the IMT group for some help, probably filling some of those spots as we potentially move through some of the stuff that could happen. Our governor's conference coming up in February has moved virtually, so much like you have all done. We will get that out, and we will be kicking off some of our training that's been back to, I know they did last month, but we're getting closer to able to do some online training to get some of the EM stuff back up and running, stuff that we had postponed for a while. So thanks to the fire service for the 2 great things that you helped us with. We'll be watching Storm Delta and see what she does down in the Gulf, and we may be looking at some EMAC requests from there. They're doing a little pre-reaching out. No request yet, but they are having some discussions on what they potentially need depending on what the storm does. So stay tuned. We're here to support you guys and keep doing the good work.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our report from DNR with Bill Glessner.
Good evening, all. To start out, I want to say thanks to the folks that went out and assisted in Oregon. That was it's good to show the folks out there that we in Minnesota work together and we're able to do and help others. And kudos to you for going out and coming back safe. That's important. We still have 26 staff out west on assignment. To date for this, after July, we've had 150 to 200 requests that we've filled for those western assignments. Most of our folks are coming back now. We're just getting a trickle effect to kind of finish out some of those fires out there and help them. And that's in Oregon, California, Washington, places like that. And over the last week, we've had about a dozen fires amongst all the agencies in Minix, so all the wildland agencies in the state. And we're starting to see a slight uptick with fall moving on and the dry weather we've been having. We still have staff continuing to telework, and then we're managing staff for fire response during COVID and getting out and responding to those fires as we have in the spring too. So, and a report.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, MBFTE with Steve Flaherty.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm hoping you can hear me. So we've got several things going on here at the MBFTE. Probably the biggest thing that's going on right now for us is the Target Solutions offering that we've pushed out statewide in the last week or so. And if you did not get the email from the MBFTE regarding that, about submitting your roster to us, that we can send off to Target Solutions to get you onboarded, please contact me. I can certainly get that out to you. You may want to check your spam or junk mail, because sometimes it goes that way depending on if you got a server that's listed with the government, city, municipality, something like that. So but anyway, we think that's going to be a really big program that's going to be very, very beneficial for the state of Minnesota as far as your training goes. So we're really excited about that. The other thing is we're working right now with one of the other programs that we had that were funded this year through our budget was a virtual speaker series. And I'm working with Dr. Rich Gassaway on that. We did send out a survey several weeks ago, and for those of you that responded to that, thank you. We're compiling information, and currently we're reaching out to prospective speakers on certain subject matters that were compiled from the survey. So the interesting and neat thing about this particular offering for the state of Minnesota is that when we schedule these speakers, and they'll be all virtual, and that's thanks to the COVID thing, but we will be able to, if you can't make that particular time and date where the speaker is presenting, we will be recording that and making that available to the fire service for up to 30 days after that, as long as you register for that particular event. So we potentially have the opportunity to reach all 20,000 firefighters in the state of Minnesota for each of the 5 speakers that are going to be selected and presenting. So watch for more information on that, but we're pretty excited about that as well. Again, different times require different ways of producing or offering up the training, and the online and virtual series, as much as we're reluctantly getting used to that, but it's serving a purpose, and we're able to cast a wide net over the whole state. So that's about it. One last thing I'll remind the fire departments, that if you've got students who went through NFPA 1001 or instructor or officer FAO back in fiscal 19, which is 2 years ago now, your students have until the end of June to get their either their live burn in or complete their course or pass their certifications. I'm currently working on following up on the fiscal 19 students that we have in our database that haven't completed yet. Our board will pay for that, provided that those students pass the course and pass their certification tests. But it's quite shocking how many departments are still sitting out there with students that haven't finished that yet. There's a lot of money sitting there waiting for your departments. So you may want to follow up with your students who have were in those courses in fiscal 19, just to verify that they're going to get that finished up, so that that money comes back into your department. So that's all I've got. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have a report from ECN. I don't know if Stephen or Marcus are going first. If you want to unmute yourself and take it away.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to allow Marcus and I to give a quick update to the group. I've just got one item, and then I'll hand it off to Marcus. So at ECN, we support the statewide Emergency Communications Board, and they have a strategic plan. The current plan runs through the end of 2021, and we're just starting the process of looking at what that 2022 through 2024 plan is going to look like. And that plan addresses the stakeholder needs and priorities for emergency communications. That includes our 911 system, the Armor radio network, our public alert and warning system, IPAWS, and our wireless broadband program. We're planning on a regional level is probably going to start in the next 2 to 3 weeks and continue through the first quarter of 2021. And those efforts will roll right into a statewide planning effort, which will start towards the end of first quarter 2021 and conclude in the second quarter. Unfortunately, the fire service has been really underrepresented in the development of that emergency communications plan and helping to guide the efforts of where we take our 4 programs. We're really looking to change that for the development of our new plan that'll kick off here in first quarter. So we will be engaging the Minnesota Fire Marshal's office to get seats at the table for all of you so that your voice is heard, and making sure that your needs and priorities are being met when it comes to emergency communications. So we're really excited about this at ECN and really excited about bringing this group into the mix and continuing the conversation on how we can improve our capabilities across the state. So thank you for that. And then I will turn it over to Marcus.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Chief, for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Some pretty exciting news coming out of the northwest part of the state. ECN made available an SHSP grant to all 7 regions across Minnesota. And each of those regions then brought forth their case as to what their priorities were and what they needed to do to be able to expand their capabilities. And the Northwest region put forth an effort and was backed up by Steve and myself, and we met with the director and really talked about our number 1 priority within ECN is to expand the capabilities within our public safety community across Minnesota. And a great deal of that is accomplished by getting people onto the Armor network so that we achieve that ultimate interoperability. The Northwest region of the state is really the last region to come onto the Armor network. And that was somewhat eye-opening and shocking even to some people across the state. But the Armor network in Northwest Minnesota, the last tower actually just came on the air a matter of months ago. So most law enforcement in Northwest Minnesota have migrated to the Armor network from their legacy VHF systems, but most fire and EMS have not. So ECN put really their money where their mouth is and extended a $100,000 grant to the Northwest region to be able to put radios into the hands of fire and EMS throughout the Northwest region. And the plan that was proposed and that was approved and is now underway is the Northwest region has been able to obtain several hundred used radios from across the state and around the regions. A lot of these radios are XTL, XTS platform radios that were purchased in 2012, 2010 under some grant funding. And then as departments migrated away from those to an Apex platform radio, they had those radios become available. Certainly Apex is the new platform, and the Apex or the XTS platform radios still have a lot of life in them, particularly ones that were used for lighter duty areas or for some lower population areas where they just didn't see that much use. And the Northwest region put out a request for proposal for bid for several shops submitted bids to tune those radios, to program those radios, to buy brand new batteries for those radios, and to make them usable for the fire and EMS crowd throughout Northwest Minnesota. That RFP was just awarded this week. Those radios have all been transported up to a shop in Grand Forks who's beginning that work, and we're working on now developing programming so that we hope to have over 300 radios into the hands of those fire and EMS personnel sometime before the end of the year, more than likely in the month of November. Most of the portables will be out. And then we also were able to obtain a number of dash mount and also remote mounted mobile radios as well. And those will be going out into the communities. And we've really found that the fire community is obviously excited about getting these radios, and we have reached out and really appreciate the relationship that we've formed with the state fire marshal's office and working with the fire service officers to help us understand the need, who needs those radios, where they can best be used, and how to best implement the radios that we have in a way that makes the best bang for the buck or the most expanded capacity and capabilities across the Northwest. So pretty excited about it, and just want to let the group know about it, that we are working hard to try to get those capabilities up. And again, really appreciate the relationship that we've formed with your organization here. And please, if we can help you, let us know. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. And just a reminder to everybody, if you do have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box and we'll make sure to get them taken care of before we close tonight. But the next on our agenda, very important topic always in the fire service. We thought it was especially timely for the fire service to get some updates and some information from MnFire. So I'll hand it off to George Esbenson.
Great. Thanks, Amanda, and appreciate everybody's time. So I was only given 3 hours to do this presentation, so hopefully I can get through it. So Dee Dee's going to be doing the sharing because that's not a privilege that I enjoy. So we'll try to get through this as quickly as possible and give you an update. So George Esbenson, the organ proof. You miss a meeting, people make you. It's good to show up. Slide. And another one. So first of all, a big thanks to everybody who helped us with this grant funded by the FSAC, distributed by the MBFTE, makes this grant possible and makes this funding possible. And that's what's going to deliver this free training statewide. And as all of you on this call know, firefighters face many, many challenges in their working lives, but they also, get exposed to other people's worst days. And that's why cancer, cardiac, and emotional trauma are the big three killers of firefighters, not only in Minnesota, but nationally. Next. Of course, we've all seen this before. Next slide, Dee Dee, but it'll fill in. So we ranked 21st in population, 12th in landmass, and we ranked 48th in investment in the fire service in Minnesota. So, and this is a number that's always somewhere in the 40s. Sometimes we get as good as 44. Last year we dropped to 48th. So we are grossly underfunded, but this program will help deliver some much needed training to Minnesota's firefighters. Next slide. We are Minnesota's resource for the fire service, funded by the MPFF, the Chiefs Association, the MSFDA, and their Shield the Fools. That's where our seed money comes from. Those four organizations continue to generously help support our base of operations, our support line, and some other kinds of things. But grants are very important to us. Next slide. So our mission then is to provide education and support for firefighters on those big three topics. Next slide. And we do this previously through in-person classes. We had a MnFire awareness class, a 2-hour class. And we still have that. We've totally revised it. You can go to our website, mnfireinitiative.com, and schedule your class. And then we also now are doing 3 deeper dives on top of the awareness class. We also have a deeper dive into cardiac, into emotional trauma, and into cancer. And those will be available in quarters 1, 2, and 3 in 2021. They're already on the schedule, so you can go to our website, mnfireinitiative.com, and schedule your class now for, whenever you want, quarter 1, 2, and 3 for cardiac, emotional trauma, and cancer. Next slide. And again, it's going to either be delivered in person, as we always have in the past, and then we also have a virtual option that'll be, like this, a Zoom or a Cisco kind of thing with all the firefighters from your department, logging into a system and getting the instructor and the material delivered like you would in a classroom, except it's all going to be online, and keep that distancing thing so we don't have more COVID problems. So we've also invested very heavily into our deep dive courses on cancer, cardiac, and emotional trauma, and how each are impacted by sleep, diet, and fitness. We have experts that we've employed, and we'll show you who they are on the very next slide. So Dr. Zeke McKinney, he's a Health Partners occupational medicine and environmental medicine guy, known throughout the country as a firefighter and cancer expert. Dr. Margaret Gavian from Blue Peak Consulting, who is our emotional trauma medical director statewide. And I see there's a typo there. That's not Zeke McKinney's brother or his twin brother. It's actually Paul Anderson, who's our cardiac and fitness subject matter expert. And given, next slide. And so I think, Dee Dee, if you click on the start the course, I think if you click here, perhaps. Oh, we might not have audio. Okay, well, anyway, we can go to the next slide, Dee Dee. But so this slide is going to be very much kind of like Blue Card, where it's going to take you through the information, and then it's going to give you a post test, and you have to get 70% correct on that to move to the next module. So it does have some built-in features, so people can't just pencil whip through it. We have a new program called the MnFire Aware Fire Department. You will identify, if you're interested in this, and 1 or 2 ambassadors in your department, establish or demonstrate you have a health and wellness committee, continue wellness training, provide health surveillance, and make sure that at least 80% of your firefighters get the MnFire awareness training. We'll give you certificates and some other special offers and insights into the MnFire curriculum. Next slide. And then the next slide. And the next slide. All right, so the 3 topics that we cover then are cardiac health, and next slide, we cover the issues that go around cardiac health and well-being. We show videos. We help your firefighters understand the cardiac risk, know the warning signs. As many of you know, we've had 2 line of duty deaths in Minnesota this year already, both of them from cardiac. And we also have Chief Wayne Keatwich from Richfield, who's had 2 sudden cardiac arrests. So this is a very prevalent issue in the fire service. Next slide. And talking to your firefighters about, this is totally a cultural thing. It's under the control of the firefighters and how we can address those things, both as departments and as individuals. Next slide. Talk about the benefits of physical activity and how they can calculate their own risk factors and see how they're doing. Next slide. None of us are Puritans. We all have those different kinds of things going on. So we need to have understand the impacts of smoke, strenuous calls on cardiac, rehab, wearing our SCBA, etc. And then the next 2 slides. Then we move to emotional trauma. This is the big one that gets a lot of press, but I just want to say right now that all 3 of these issues are the things that are killing firefighters. So in this section, we'll build awareness of the mental health issues and help you as fire service leaders build cultures of self-awareness and getting people over the fact or over the sort of the stigma that, you know, if you're feeling out of some sort of sign of weakness. Next slide. And go over what depression and suicide are, how drug and alcohol abuse play into that, and just all the stresses that are involved in the work that people in the fire service do. Next slide. And then we talk about recognizing and responding to emotional trauma and finding the right resources and the right support. Next slide. And then we look at emotional trauma in the mindset of a structure that we use on a daily basis, right? So how we respond to fires, we can also sort of use this same kind of strategy for how we're going to respond to the emotional trauma impacts. Next slide. And then talking about all the different kind of tools that we can bring to bear. And again, MnFire has a toll-free number. It's staffed 24/7, 888-784-6634. We get calls on that on a weekly basis, able to respond immediately, including getting people same day or next day inpatient kinds of care if that's what's needed. But often peer counseling is the solution. Next slide. We know we've had some success in the legislature with PTSD legislation. Unfortunately, all legislation comes with little hooks in it, and how it gets implemented by folks like the Department of Labor and Industry and the folks at the League of Minnesota Cities, et cetera. And so we still continue to fight those battles. MnFire is your advocate, one of your advocates at the Capitol for looking out for firefighter well-being and continuing to push on getting firefighters the proper resources and treatment they need. And then last but not least is cancer. And I think that's the one that, you know, all of us, everyone's getting a lot better at looking at. And so what are some of those impacts on the cancer on the fire service? Next slide. And we show some videos and we talk about the stats and again, try to bring this home to the firefighters. Next slide. Not only are these things that we can do organizationally as fire service leaders, but there's also things that the firefighters can do themselves. It is really important to understand that firefighters are at a much greater risk for certain kinds of cancer. And in Minnesota, we have the presumptive laws around these things, but unfortunately, the burden of proof is still on the firefighters, which makes getting benefits for the firefighters and their families somewhat difficult. And again, that's another thing that MnFire and our legislative partners are working on. Next slide. And then we talk to your firefighters about, you know, the risk factors and the research. Next slide. And talk about exposure reduction after fire calls. Again, these are things that can be done for not a lot of money, but it's really about changing habits. Thanks to the MBFTE and the FSAC, you know, there's been a big push on the gear extractors and the dryers, second sets of turnout gear, those kinds of things. So, but many of these things are incumbent upon ourselves. And then the quick decon stuff. Next slide. Fire Cancer Registry and the things that are going on there. So that's really what that's really what the whole program is about. I don't want to take up too much of your time. There's another section on what firefighters and fire service leaders can do, you know, internally. And I'm not going to go over all those slides with you, but I just want to let you know, again, this is free. There's no paperwork that you have to do. You simply sign up, get on our training calendar. One of our 60 or 80 highly trained instructors will show up either virtually or in person and deliver the training, and the FSAC will take care of all the financial aspects. So it's a great way to deliver some outstanding training into your training schedule, so it can take a burden off your training officers. And also, hopefully, we're going to begin to turn the tide on these constant drumbeat of tragedies that we continue to experience in the Minnesota Fire Service. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you for sharing that important information with everyone. If there are any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. I'm not seeing any questions yet, but we'll give everybody a minute if they want to type in the chat box. Or if you are unable to type in the chat box, I know we have a number of callers on tonight. So if you have a question and want to unmute yourself and ask the question, I know it's always dangerous to tell everyone they can unmute themselves, but now's your opportunity.
Right. And I'll just say, I'm sorry to speed through it, but I'm just trying to be mindful of people's time on the virtual call. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. And again, we'll be happy to schedule that we have down very, very well. So thanks again.
All right. Thank you. Still not seeing any questions, so I will toss it over to Marshall Smith to round out the evening.
All right, thank you, Chief. What George brings up kind of hits close to home on a number of fronts. It was just about a little over a year and a half ago now that one of my good friends, Jeff Vollmer from Mayer Fire Department, died in the middle of the night after a strenuous training activity. And the reason that comes up to mind is because tomorrow when I go up to Vermilion, he was always there with his dad, Art, and we fished together and all that stuff. That hurt. And bring it fast forward, I lose a good friend, Mike Piter, from Maple Grove, St. Paul Fire Department from cancer. And then obviously Tommy McDonough Jr. So this really has become a passion of mine because I'm just getting tired of it, seeing this happen. And I don't want to say it's always preventable. Obviously, there are sometimes hereditary things that creep their head in, but we as a fire service have to do everything we can to minimize the chances of any one of our fellow firefighters or ourselves from succumbing to any of these big three. So thank you, George, for taking the time to enlighten us with MnFire's mission. And everybody, please do not be afraid to reach out. Reach out whenever you can. Get that information. So thank you again, George. Lastly but not leastly, I want to talk about our special edition coming up. At the request of Commissioner Harrington, I have set up a fire subgroup for what we're calling unplanned special events. That's kind of the military acronym, USE. We've been calling it civil unrest, but they just call it USE or use. And the reason we wanted to address this earlier than later is because we have a couple key dates at the minimum coming up where we could see an uptick in civil unrest. Unfortunately, during times of civil unrest, it is now becoming quite apparent that fire is the chosen modus operandi of those who want to take civil protesting, legal, lawful, God bless America, protesting, voicing your opinions to another level and creating destruction, which is unacceptable. So we've already met once with leaders from the MSFDA, MSFCA, Fire Marshal's office. I'm glad I got a text here from Chief Gady from St. Paul. He's on. He doesn't know this yet, but our next meeting, we are going to include representatives from the two big cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and as well, we'll probably be bringing in Duluth and possibly Rochester, Mankato as well. Those are the spots that might see an uptick in civil unrest. But we have the elections coming up on November 3rd, and that's why we didn't want to postpone this meeting, because what we would like to do, well, not only the November 3rd, but we've also got later on, I believe it's going to be in March, are the trials of the police officers from Minneapolis. And I believe those are going to be up in Duluth. So what we would like to do is push this out to the state's fire service, because we found out during the civil unrest of last summer that no town or city in Minnesota is exempt from this type of activity. We saw it in small towns, we saw it in Bemidji, we saw it all over Minnesota. And we truly believe that this informational piece that we're going to present on October 28th, the last Wednesday of the month, will be beneficial to all the fire departments across the state. What we're looking at doing at the request of the commissioner is to set up a program, a method of making sure no fire department, no community is without the assets they need to mitigate the situations that are at hand. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but we are planning a response program that also includes everybody's own individual mutual aid agreements with their surrounding departments and all that stuff. So we're not here to disrupt the apple cart. What we're here to do is fill the apple cart with additional resources and easy ways of getting those resources. So we'll be sending out additional information the third week of October. We really want as many participants in this meeting. We had 47 tonight, which I think is a great turnout. And we're going to really push this out to greater Minnesota as well, just to make sure that everybody understands what this unplanned special event fire subgroup is working on in an effort to make sure your community is not without the assets they need to get through whatever events coming up. So with that being said, I'll bring it off. I'll shut up there. Again, thank you to all 47 people who showed up tonight. That's a great showing. Please pass this information along about MinFire. Keep your firefighters safe, and go Muskies. Go Muskies. That's all I have to say. So, Chief Swenson, back to you.
Well, that concludes the agenda for the evening, and no additional comments in the chat field, but George Esbenson did put his email, so take note of that and reach out if you have any additional questions on MinFire. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.